Okay, now it's recording, I guess. All right. So, good evening, everybody. I was saying that those of you who are talking to me for the first time, my name is Jean-Baptiste Sanfo, and I'm from Burkina Faso. Here in Japan, I'm currently a research fellow in Kobe University, and I'm at the Graduate School of International Cooperation Studies. Um, Among African friends and fellows, I'm also the president of our association, the Association of Africans in Kyoto. For those who are not familiar with the association, this is one that we have created to allow us to network among Africans here in Japan. And that allows us, for example, to share our experiences, and we can also support each other. And at the same time, our association is here to promote our culture and then try to show the real image of what Africa is, because what we see here or what we hear of here is not always the truth. But when we get close to people, when we share with people, I believe this is how we can get them to know us more and us also knowing them more, because there are many aspects of Japan that we still don't know, I guess, and that we need to learn about. So that's why we have decided together to create such an association so that we can carry out our activities within a given framework. So that being said, I will not speak much. I would like to maybe to pass the floor on to some of our elders to introduce themselves or say a few words before we can really go into our discussion, because I think we need to give more time to the discussion, and that's it. So first of all, I would like to give the floor to Professor Sako for a few words before we continue.
Oh, thank you very much. I didn't expect that. Yeah, hello everybody. I think this is also one of the things we need really to do to network and also to exchange knowledge and to discuss about problems. And then I think this is a good opportunity, and I hope this will not be the first time. And then let's try to keep it regularly, and then we can maybe have more audiences. And also we can also invite Japanese audiences also to join us to share our African problems with them. So I hope we can have a good talk today. Thank you very much.
All right. So thank you very much, Professor Sako. Professor Dr. Sa, I think you're one of our elders, so I would like you to say a few words before we start.
Yeah, I think after Professor Sako, I might be the one who is like second in the list. So thank you very much. So as you may know, my name is Papa Salif Sar, but I see that in the program, Jean wrote Professor Sar, which is my nickname, which is not my real name. Anyway, I'm from Senegal and I graduated from Kyushu University in Fukuoka in 2010, where I got my PhD in agriculture. And then I moved to Kyoto University from 2011. I spent there, let's say, 6 years, where I was assistant professor at the Center of African Area Studies. But my specialty is agricultural science. And since 4 years ago, I moved to Tsukuba, where I'm now a researcher at the Japan International Research Center for Agricultural Sciences. So when I was in Kyoto in 2014, Sako Sensei and I and some friends thought of like making a kind of consortium of Africans in Kyoto. This is where AAK was born. And I was the first president for 3 years before coming to Tsukuba. And now it's my friend, dear Jean-Baptiste, who is leading the association. And today it's a good chance, as you say, to like kind of come up again together, because it's been a long time that the association was a bit sleeping, and this is mostly because of the COVID. So this is Zoom meeting actually is a kind of resilience for the COVID. So we can meet without meeting. So let's have a fruitful discussion. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much for the introductory word. We are really happy to have everybody in. And this is really an opportunity for us to meet, even though we don't meet physically. And I believe that we really need such opportunities to meet and share, because there are a lot of things that we can learn from each other. So without going much into the introductory remarks, I think that from now on, we are going to start listening to the presenters. And before we start, I think I would like to remind that we have this event because there is a lot of change here and there and everywhere in the world because of the current situation that we are experiencing. We know that the situation is affecting everybody, whether we are in Japan, whether we are in African countries, or whether we are in European countries. The situation is affecting everybody. But there is something that we can do. There are some experiences that we can share, and hopefully, when we get some ideas from each other, this is going to contribute more to our knowledge, and this is going to contribute more to our personal experiences, whether we are in our universities or we are at work. So that's the main reason why we have decided to have such an event all together. So now we are going to listen to our first speaker, and I propose that we give honor to ladies, but ladies said no. We give honor to the elders, which is also an African way of addressing things. So we're going to give honor to Dr. Dudu Fall. First, I would like him to briefly introduce himself and tell us what he's doing in Japan, and before he gets into his presentation. But before he starts, I would like to remind us a few guidelines. When we are not speaking, we can keep our microphones muted. And that's very important because if the microphones of some people are not muted, it's going to disturb the sound, and that will also disturb our meeting. So that's it. I would like to pass on the floor to Dr. Dudufa to start. So you have 20 minutes. I will be recording, and when you go up to 15 minutes, I will let you know that you have 5 minutes left.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, so you have the floor now.
Wow, the screen sharing is disabled by you. You should give me the...
Is it disabled?
Yeah.
Hold on a second.
So can you give me like...
Try again.
In the meantime, I can introduce myself. I am Dudu Fall, or Dudu Fall to be more precise. I come from Senegal. And now I am an assistant professor in the Nara Institute of Science and Technology. So on the fly, I use assistant professor of computer. It's kind of a funny way to put it. Usually say computer science, but using computer science, I work in cybersecurity. So I try to, actually it's funny because the name of our laboratory is Laboratory for Cyber Resilience. So we're kind of familiar on how to make things more resilient somehow. Okay, I can share my screen. Can you see it?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, so I've been co-opted actually by Jean-Baptiste to give this presentation. So I was wondering, like, as a tech guy, what can I give? What kind of presentation can I give you guys? So, but don't worry, I will not be talking about technology, but more about what has been happening in the world and how we can move forward. So before we start, I have a little disclaimer. You know, trying to predict what's going to happen sometimes it's a risky endeavor into charlatanry. So people be clement with us, and we are not ogres or prophets. We just want to brainstorm a little bit about the events, the COVID-19 event, the lockdown and what we should do going forward. Actually, I think the title of the webinar is a little bit into the future, right? Because right now people are going into a second lockdown, especially in Europe and in North America. But the rest of the world seems to be doing fine, especially in Africa. Things seems to be going really well there. So maybe my presentation is also with, say, the world, but probably most of the things I will say will be somehow directed towards Africa and developing countries in general. And when we say lesson learned, I want to ask a question. Are we talking about the lessons that we learned, or are we just talking about confirmations, things that maybe we have noticed before, things that we have observed before? And with the COVID-19, we can say, well, COVID-19 helped us to confirm that this thing is what we thought it was. And actually, I will not, I mean, before jumping into the things, very bad decisions have been made during the pandemic, right, for managing it and for making sure that we can save as most lives as possible. And there was this quote by this Italian psychologist, and it was a very long time ago. And someone asked him what are the common causes of very bad decisions? And he said, well, inattention, distraction, lack of interest, poor preparation, genuine stupidity, timidity, braggadocio, and etc., etc. And when you read this, he kind of gave an exhaustive list of the things that we do to make bad decisions. And when you look at the world leaders, you can see some of these attributes on them. So it's very pinpoint. And I think we need to show this type of thinking to some of our leaders out there. So the first things we observed, and the first thing that pretty much everyone predicted, is that most countries are expected to face recessions in 2020, right? But I don't want to dwell on this because I think there are enough information out there. But I have some other things that I have found more interesting to talk about for this webinar. So for example, it looks like women are better leaders than men, right? Maybe before we have been thinking about it, we might be like, oh, maybe a woman would have done this better or not. But so far, the data is showing that women are better leaders than men. And when you compare countries together, like similar countries like Germany, France, UK, you see that the country that is led by a woman has done better than the countries that are led by men. When you compare, for example, Singapore, Taiwan, they are similar countries, and probably Taiwan has done better than Singapore, although Singapore also did something really good. So this data, and I know it's up for discussion. I know many people can object to this, but that's why we're here to discuss. The second thing I wanted to say is, well, does the world really care about Africa in general? Right, the COVID-19 appeared in December, according to officials, but really the world started to really take notice of it around February, March, right? And somehow, some way, with less than 1 year, they have found a vaccine. And after Russia, they said they had a vaccine, but no one was excited about it. I don't know what happened to the Russian vaccine, but anyway, since the West said they found a vaccine, that is very good. Actually, I'm very happy, don't take me wrong. But if you compare it to all the diseases in Africa, for example, or in other developing countries, you see, for example, for Ebola, it first appeared in 1976, and the vaccine was developed in 2015. So it's like 40 years, right? 40 years before the vaccine for Ebola got developed. And for coronavirus, because it's affected the entire world, and the West in particular, they are suffering right now, in less than a year, there's a vaccine that's available already. It is also another thing that is somehow flabbergasting for me during this pandemic. Well, another thing that looks very interesting to me is that there is enough money on earth to eradicate poverty. So this might seem a very obvious sentence, right? People will, of course, do, there's enough money on earth, but why no one is trying to eradicate poverty? This is a simple question, but maybe the answer is way more complicated. And why do I say, oh, there's enough money on earth to eradicate poverty? When you look at some of the data, for example, these two figures, nice figures that were made by UNDP, you can see that poverty rates were decreasing, right, from the 90s until now. Like in 2020, after COVID-19, if you look at the figure on the left, on my left, I'm not sure on your left or your right. After the COVID-19 hit the world, we are seeing that poverty is increasing again somehow. And the countries that will be affected are the countries that are located in sub-Saharan Africa, most affected, and the countries that are located in South Asia, right? But when you look at the world, the entire world, the stimulus for the COVID-19 crisis is between 10 to 12 trillion US dollars. That's a lot of money. And for example, us in Japan, we're very happy. We received like 100,000 yen each, right, for each family member. That's very good. That's very nice. We enjoyed it. But still, you know, if poverty was kind of crisis, people would be investing this kind of money in the poverty to solve the issues in developing countries. You may say, okay, one of the solutions is maybe to give like $200 billion to each of the developing country. That's a lot of money. So, but why aren't you doing it? That's also another question. So those were my observations in this COVID-19 that I found like interesting, and that I hope that people will find solutions into them. And in the way forward, maybe I will give some glimpses of solutions, and maybe during the discussion, we can go a little bit deeper on them. There is this very nice book, The Great Leveler. And what the author is saying is that, you know, whenever there is some tragic events and big like tragic events in some countries or some parts of the world, after that, those parts of the world, they see some kind of economic prosperity, right? So that's what he called the four horsemen. And you have war, you know, like mass mobilization warfare, like World War, revolutions, state collapse, and pandemics. So that means now we have this occasion, this unique occasion, we have a pandemic, right? 2020 is somehow a horrible year because of this pandemic. So we have a great occasion to change the world. It's an opportunity that's given to all of us, right? From the West, from Africa, from Asia, from the Middle East. We have this opportunity to change the world for the better and forever. But what should we do to change the world? Right? So I don't think we need to reinvent the wheel. We can learn from the past, what people did, and if it was successful, we can imitate it, or if we can add more, we can do more and add on to that. So I contend that our after COVID-19 is somehow comparable to after World War II, WW2. And we can probably adopt the same policies and tools and techniques that they adopted after World War II to have a prosperous world. So what happened after World War II? I think you all know history, but this is just a quick review of what really happened. And some historians situate this period between 1945 and 1971, and some people say 1975. And that's why the French people, they call it les 30 Glorieuses, right? It's like the glorious 30, if you want to translate it into English. And that's what the Italians call il miracolo economico. So during that period between 1945, after like the World War II and 1971, we have great inventions like the pills, electronics, computers, and the birth of the internet, nuclear power, television, antibiotics, space travel. Everything you can think of right now somehow was created during that period. And why was that? People were willing, after a disastrous war that killed millions of people, to rebuild, to brainstorm, to create new stuff. So that period was very good for society in general. And what most governments tried to achieve was to have equality and economic efficacy. So this seems to be something very difficult to achieve. Right? Usually when you have equality, economy doesn't really follow. You can take the case of communism, like hardcore communism. They try to have equality, but then the countries suffer like economically. But on the other side, if you want to be like an economic powerhouse, usually there is no equality. So you see people who are like extremely rich and others who are extremely poor. But somehow, some way, after the World War II, most of the governments, most of the West, most of like in other countries like Japan, they managed to have this type of an equilibrium of equality and economic efficacy. So we all know the Marshall Plan. Like the US invested back then $12 billion to help Western Europe, but also at some countries like Japan and South Korea. So in today's money, it's around 130 billion, right, for all those countries. And that helped them to recover from the war. And the official name of the Marshall Plan actually is European Recovery Program. I didn't really know that. I only knew the Marshall Plan. But besides that, there were other policies and other measures that were taken, right? So they needed to have a greater burden on the haves. Here, what I mean by the haves are the people, the rich people. So they can choose to do effective altruism. That means giving up their money by themselves, like voluntarily. They don't need to be forced to do it. A little bit like what Bill Gates is doing, but some people will say, oh no, he's doing it to escape taxes, etc. But we don't know, we're not sure about it. But it is an option, that effective altruism. The rich people can give their money back to society and try to invest in something that will be good for society in general and have a more equal society. At the same, we can say that the rich countries should maybe give more money for like poor countries to level up, to to invest in infrastructures and agriculture and etc. to become like a little bit richer, to have like more prosperous economies, more equality in those countries as well. And the second thing is strong government intervention. So during that time, there were people who didn't want to share the money, although they made a lot of money during the war. So the government would tax them heavily or expropriate some of their things that they have, or just confiscate them for a period of time. Right? So these three measures were very popular back then. So someone is talking. So this is an excerpt of an essay I came across recently. And they explain like how those governments were doing during after World War II. And they explain how like they taxed the wealthy people to pay for like public pensions or sickness or unemployment benefits. And some countries like France, they reach a confiscatory 100% of those who had profited most from the conflict. So we could do the same here also, because there are many companies that are making a lot of money thanks to COVID-19. Right? One of the examples is Zoom that we are using today. The owner made like $12 billion since March. So he's making a lot of money. So in this effort to reconstruct the world, to have a better world from now forward, maybe he needs to either do effective altruism or being taxed or being forced by government to give up like most of this money, because anyway, he doesn't really need it, right, for the reconstruction of the world. But this is just an example. There are many other countries that are making a lot of money thanks to the COVID-19, like companies that make masks, for example, they make a lot of money. So all those companies should participate, hopefully voluntarily, through the construction of the world to make it a better place. And relieving the pressure on the have-nots. The have-nots are the poor people. So we need to relieve pressure on them, right? So how do we do it? There is this theory of wealth redistribution. I'm sure you know this guy like Thomas Piketty. He wrote two very famous books, very lengthy and very famous books. And the overall idea is to redistribute wealth, but he's focusing mostly in Europe, and telling that in order to have a better Europe, a Europe of after World War II, we need to redistribute wealth. We need to tax inheritance. We need to tax the rich people and redistribute that money in the society, so that someone who's not educated, someone who doesn't have highest degree, can still have a decent life. And that's very important. If we look at it in Japan, for example, there are people who are not that educated, but they still have a decent life. Right? They work 8 hours a day, and they can pay their bills. They can pay their rents, and they can eat normally. So if we don't have this type of equality in society, usually these kind of things happen. Actually, if you're not Senegalese, or if you're not following the news in Senegal, you might not know what these numbers means. But the COVID-19 has killed approximately maybe 200 people in Senegal. But in the last 2-3 weeks, I don't want to say illegal immigration, but this immigration where these young people are trying to go to Europe by using some makeshift boats have killed like around 480 people, and 480 young people who are just trying because they think life is hard for them in Senegal. They want to go to Europe or to the United States to live there, to have a decent life. And not everybody is sympathetic to this cause. They think, oh, these kids should stay and work. Why did they stop studying, for example? Or why didn't they just go and get like high degree and have a good job? But as I said, even in countries like Japan, you can see people who don't have all those degrees, right? But they still have a decent life. And you can see some of these kids, they work 24/7, right? But still, they are struggling to pay for rent. They're struggling to pay for the bills. And they think, okay, the way they're working in Senegal, if they go, for example, to France or Italy or Spain or in Japan, they can have a decent life. They'll be able to pay for the bills, and they'll be able to pay for anything else. And they'll be able to pay for anything else. Sorry, I was looking at Jean's message. But we can't blame all these things on, like the West. It's time to be self-sufficient, and we need to be the change we want to see in the world. It's easy for me to be here in Japan and tell people back then, well, you should do this and do that, and I'm not really contributing somehow, right? So I came across this book, which the title is The Weirdest People in the World. And you have the what word means there. But what's important, and what the author is saying, is that weird people have a bad habit of universalizing their particularities. And this is what is happening around the world, right? We somehow have the West that is trying to always impose their culture and their way of doing things. And I take an example here of Senegal. I was in Senegal. I checked on the internet, like when was rice first introduced to Senegal, and apparently it was in the 16th century. And we are in 2020, and we cannot produce enough rice for Senegalese people. So if I say that, if you don't know, you may think that in Senegal there are 1 billion people, but no, there are only 16 million. But still, we cannot produce enough rice for Senegalese people, and we eat rice every single day. So we depend heavily on imports. Right? And during the coronavirus, people were like very afraid that they were not going to eat rice, the chebujan, because they thought those countries in Asia would close their barriers, they would not export rice to Senegal. But since 16th century, our government, they know people eat rice every day, but they don't make the effort to make us cultivate enough rice in Senegal. Why is that? Just because, when France was colonizing us, they imposed groundnuts. So we have a lot of groundnuts, but we don't have a lot of rice. And when we talk about agriculture, usually people, they say, oh, we have a lot of land in Senegal, we can cultivate all this land. And I'm like, people don't realize the opportunity we have in Africa. Right? I think there is a comedian in Japan that says, Nanimo na Nigeria, which means like Nigeria doesn't have anything. I think he's joking. But the fact that we don't have much in our country is an opportunity. We can build the continent of the future. We can build the country of the future. We can build the cities of the future. And likewise, we need to have an agriculture that is an agriculture of the future. I'm just giving an example here of agriculture, right? Because we don't have much time to talk. But at least at the worst, we should do what the best country is doing in the world. And right now, in terms of agriculture, the Netherlands are like a leading country in the world. And they're a small country, but they can feed the world, literally. This is not like one of those titles, those clickbait titles. They can literally feed the world because of technology. And we need
Doctor, you can start wrapping up.
Okay. And we need also to trust ourselves more, right? We did pretty good for managing the COVID-19 in Africa somehow, but no one really believes that we have the knowledge to manage COVID-19, right? And even us, if we don't want to give props to our politicians, at least we can say, well, our health officials did really good, right? And we have something to teach to the rest of the world on how to manage this type of pandemics somehow, but no one is willing to listen to us. And the last thing I want to say is about invention. So since 1975 until now, people say that we are stagnating, we haven't invented anything as a world. And I'm challenging myself and other people from developing countries to get themselves into invention mode, try to invent things in order to have a better future. So that was it. I will leave you with this slide and I will not explain it. So hopefully you will ask questions about it. Thank you very much for listening.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Dudufal. That was really an interesting presentation, and we could get really what you have learned from the current situation. And you showed some aspects related, for example, to the lockdown, the second lockdown that is coming in some countries. And you also presented us an image where women leaders are leading. So you showed data that that is showing that women leaders, they are doing better than men, and that's something very interesting to know. And tonight we have a woman with us, so this will be an opportunity for us also to discuss, and maybe she can share with us her experiences related to the current situation and what she thinks about the fact that women are doing better than men in terms of leading and handling situations. So for those who may have questions, I think you can write your questions. You can type your questions in the chat box. And later, after the comments of Dr. Papa, we can go through those questions and we can discuss together. So that being said, now we are going to listen to the second speaker that we have tonight. And just like Dr. Fal did, you will start by introducing yourself and letting us know more about you before you jump into your presentation itself. So thank you for joining us tonight. You have the floor.
Thank you so much, John Baptiste, for this wonderful opportunity, and thank you for organizing it. I would like to make a clarification. I would like to ask something. Do my 20 minutes include my introduction?
No, it doesn't.
Okay, perfect. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from around the world. My name is Murungi Elizabeth Mwebesa. Please call me Murungi. I am Ugandan and I'm currently a PhD student at Osaka University in the Regional and Transportational Laboratory. I also like engagements like these. I like discussing about pertinent issues that are affecting our continent and humanity as a whole. And for this discussion, I'll just follow up on what Dudu Sensei has been talking about, but I'll take a slightly different approach as we shall see moving forward. So to start, I would like to ask, what does 2020 mean to you now? When you sit down and think about it, what does it mean to you? Two words come to my mind: rediscovery and redefinition. And I'll elaborate this using three sayings from my mother tongue. The first one is, omwigo gutera mukabaro onagahara. When directly translated, it means that when you find the stick that beats your co-wife, you need to throw it very far away because it's only a matter of time until that stick is used against you. To put it in context, we are extremely interconnected that we can no longer ignore the problems in other communities because sooner or later, those problems will become your own problems. The second is enda tosoragisweke samkono, which means that you cannot hide pregnancy with the hand. And today, correct information and data is very, very, very vital to make informed decisions. Otherwise, it's only a matter of time before everything comes blowing up in your face. And third, obubunigomani, which means that we have strength in numbers and unity is power. And we can no longer ignore the power of the collective in what we do or whatever we plan. Therefore, as we face the new normal, we must realize that we're not facing it just in isolation, but as big chunks of humanity. Dudu Sensei gave us a very good background of where the world started from, the economy, the politics, the health. He talked about the vaccine for Ebola coming late. He talked about how countries in the West rebuilt after the World War. So I will also hinge on some of those aspects and try to look at the effects of the pandemic from three perspectives, that is health, economy, and politics. I'll start with health. First of all, I would like to thank all the frontline workers wherever you are for all the tireless work you've done day in, day out. You are truly, truly our heroes. And I'll go on to say that this pandemic has shown us that weak health systems are not just an African problem, but they are in fact a global problem. And we could see that all around the world, people with diseases such as diabetes, high blood pressure, HIV, AIDS, could not access their medication. And for some of them, it took them much, much longer to access this medication. And as a woman, it really, really saddens me that things like reproductive health was shelved during the lockdown, and it continues to be shelved even now as we speak. Why reproductive health? This affects 50% of the entire population of the world. That means that our mothers, our sisters, our aunties were not able to access very important things such as proper prenatal care, proper postnatal care, and other things. Well, all wasn't bleak during the lockdown, and even now as some countries have released the lockdowns and some of them going back in, because we could see that in the case of Africa, countries such as Benin, they had volunteers who are riding motorbikes to deliver mosquito nets and other medicines to different people. We saw other volunteers riding as many as 3,000 kilometers, 300 kilometers to deliver ARVs to people in the upcountry areas. We also saw in Cameroon workers moving from village to village to deliver medication and also to check up on people. This is what I call strength in numbers. I would also like to point out the fact that countries like Rwanda and Ghana started using the zip line. I think you've all heard of zip line. It is a drone service that was being used to deliver medicines and testing kits to some far or hard to reach areas in both these countries. So moving forward, as we move forward, especially in Africa, we need to think about some of these innovations so that they can help us to better improve our health facilities. Apart from the physical, we also have to look at the mental health. We know that in many African countries, mental health is almost taboo, and people are not comfortable to talk about it, people are not comfortable to discuss it. And we must acknowledge that COVID-19 has subjected every single one of us to an episode or two of a mental breakdown. What does this show us? It shows us that, in Africa, we constantly say, mental health is a white people's thing. But now that we've all tested a bit of it, we must realize that this affects humanity. I'll go on to give you an example. Suicide is the second leading cause of death among people aged 15 to 29 years around the world. And that means that about 800,000 people die annually as a result of suicide. And that is approximately 2,200 people every day. These people take their lives. And I'll give an example of Uganda. During lockdown, almost every other month, you would hear that a youth has set themselves ablaze or they've taken poison because they are frustrated with the lockdown or because they realize that, the future is bleak for me. And in another report, 57%, it was reported that 57%, there was an increase in Malawi in suicides. The rise of depression and anxiety was also felt globally in countries such as America that has hotlines. These hotline calls increased by almost 1,000%, and many of them are reporting cases of domestic violence. Once again, domestic violence is indeed a global problem, and moving forward, these are things that we really, really need to address. We are aware that many African countries try to provide a psychiatrist or a psychologist at hospitals and areas where people are isolated. But let us remember that during lockdown and even after the lockdown, these services were not provided to the people, to all the masses around. Yet everyone needed this very important service. In Zimbabwe, I don't know if you've heard about Dr. Dixon Chibabanda. In 2006, he co-founded a project called the Friendship Bench, where he trains local people, especially grandmothers and aunties, to counsel people who are going through depression. He realized that empowering the local people with such skills would not only reduce the burden of the 5 psychiatrists in Zimbabwe at the time, but also that the local people would be able to get immediate access whenever they needed it. So as we're moving forward, more and more African communities and countries should embrace such innovations, such methods to bring mental health care closer to everyone. And as we've realized, mental health mostly blew up because people didn't know what tomorrow would bring. They were not so sure about what the economy would look like. Therefore, I would like to talk about the economy as the second aspect. The pandemic has shown us that a big percentage of the world workforce lives from hand to mouth or from paycheck to paycheck. And according to the IMF, it is projected that the world overall, the GDP will decline by 3%. The International Labour Organization surveyed about 1,000 companies from 8 countries across 4 continents, and the results showed that 70% of these companies were going to shut down or were already in the process of shutting down. Some of them were already temporarily closed, and others suffered from reduced demand. And for the SMEs, these were really disproportionately affected. And we know that Africa really runs on SMEs. And when the results came out, many of them reported over 75% in reduced demand and reduced revenue. Well, the economic sky was not completely bleak because we saw a few stars, such as the fact that Tanzania attained middle income status. And we also saw a boom in growth of online businesses, ICT support companies. People fell back onto their talents and their hobbies as a way to supplement their income. And in some cases, it opened up the eyes of some Africans to the resources that we have back home. An example is a hair and skincare line that started making its own ingredients because they were not able to import the ingredients because of the sharp fall in the importation. What does this tell us? This tells us that the global cheese has now moved. So as Africa, what should we do? First and foremost, African nations, we need to invest in financial literacy. I think Dodo Sensei showed us some few books that talk about eradication of poverty and all these things. So what can we learn from the West? You know, we cannot make, save, or even invest something that we don't understand. Well, some of you might ask, where in Africa? Where in Africa are we going to, borrow this? But as of July 2020, Botswana is already rolling out a system for financial literacy of its people. Second, and I'll borrow this from our forefathers, our forefather O.R. Tambo, who said, "The children of any nation are its future. A country, movement, or person that does not value its youth and children does not deserve its future." Therefore, moving forward, we need to reskill our countrymen and women, and we need to encourage people to involve themselves not only in the science-related courses, becoming doctors, engineers, but also we need more people in the crafts world. We need more carpenters. We need more mechanics. And during the pandemic, we saw that these were some of the people who are essential workers. So moving forward, reskilling our people is very, very important. Science and innovation, research, all these things are very, very important. And from Dudu Sensei's slides, we saw that between 1947 and 1975, this is when all kinds of innovation started. Therefore, this is a great opportunity for Africa to start investing in these areas, because as we talk about homegrown solutions, these have to be backed up by homegrown data. I'll take an example. Education was one of the areas that was really badly hit. Schools closed down, classes couldn't be accessed. Of course, people moved online, but the reality is how many Africans can really, really afford online classes? So we saw teachers moving door to door. We saw lessons being moved to TV. We saw some lessons being moved to the radio, but this is not sustainable moving forward. And I'll give you an example of what some companies and some communities are doing. In Kenya, Safaricom, the largest telecom company, partnered with some organizations to provide free access to education material through SMS services to students who are using both smartphones and those without smartphones. Therefore, moving forward, we need such CSR and innovations as we move forward. Number 4, we need to realize that top-down policies are what got us here, especially as African countries in the situations that we are in. We just discussed that SMEs are what run the African economy. So as we move forward and try to transform our economy, we try to come up with restructuring of our economy, it is important to have SMEs or their representatives in all the spaces where economic discussions are being held and where economic decisions are being held, if we are really to move on and have a sustainable or resilient Africa. I'd also like to point out the fact that we need to cut down on public expenditure on non-issues. What do I mean by non-essential issues? Things like salaries and allowances for ministers. The big chunk of this can be relocated to very vital sectors such as health, sectors such as infrastructure development, and many others. Another solution would be that You know, Africans, we need to redefine and we need to repackage our countries. What do I mean? Over 30 years ago, the UAE realized that it could not survive only on oil, so they decided to repackage themselves as one of the top tourist destinations in the world. And I'm glad that Rwanda is already on the way of carving itself out as the ICT hub, of the continent. So here are some of my suggestions. Senegal could decide to become the Center for Science and Innovation. Uganda has the capacity to become the food basket of the motherland, and perhaps Mali could reprise its role as the African seat of wisdom with high-tech libraries. Therefore, we are looking inside out, looking at the resources that we have as Africans and trying to mold those and redefine ourselves in the new world or in the new normal that we're living in. Of course, there's a lot of entrepreneurship happening on the continent, but I would like to read something that caught my eye recently, and this is by the Kenyan activist, lawyer, and entrepreneur called Oriokola, and this is what she had to say in an interview in 2015. We cannot entrepreneur our way around bad leadership. We cannot entrepreneur our way around bad policies. Those of us who have managed to entrepreneur our lives out of it are living in a very false security in Africa. There is growth in Africa, but Africans are not growing. And we have to question, why is there this big push for us to innovate ourselves around problems that our leaders, our taxes, our policymakers, ourselves, to be quite frank, should be grappling with? I didn't see anyone entrepreneuring around public schools in the US or even electricity powerhouses. So why are Africans being made to do that? Our systems need to work and we need to figure this out on our own. Just to go back to what Jojo Sensei showed us before about the weird people, he talked about universalization. Therefore, we cannot just have 1-2 people entrepreneuring around health. This is something fundamental, and this is something we as a collective people need to work on. From this quotation, this lays a very good background for me to talk about politics and what the pandemic has shown us. The pandemic has shattered the facades of leadership and policies around the world. From the news and social media that we see, some of the things we can no longer unhear, the things we can no longer unsee. And one of them is that poor leadership is not an African problem. It is in fact a global problem. Therefore, as Africans, we can no longer afford to wait on someone to redeem us. We have to do this ourselves. And these are some of my suggestions. First and foremost, every single one of us needs to pick up the leadership mantle, and we need to start leading in whichever space we are in. Lead as a parent, lead as a sibling, lead as a resident, lead as an employee. But most importantly, we need to learn to lead ourselves. Second, social media activism has been quite impactful around the world, but also in Africa. But I would like to ask the African elites to go out and stand for elective office, because the real battle, the war, happens in offices, not on social media. Third, when it's time to vote, we all need to go out in very huge numbers. It doesn't matter what your political affiliation is, what your political beliefs are, there's always strength in numbers. And once again, when in doubt, vote the woman. I cannot stress this much further. When in doubt, vote the woman. Jojo Sensei did show us a slide showing that women, countries led by women, have had fewer COVID-19 fatalities. And we have seen this happening right from the grassroots. It's our mothers, our aunties, our grandmothers who have been reminding people to wear masks, to wash their hands, to sanitize, to try and socialize. So women play a very big role, not just in the home, but also politically, socially, and economically. I'll give you another example. As of August 2020, Uganda was ranked among the top 10 countries for suppressing COVID-19 by the Lancet Medical Journal. Some of you might be wondering, does Uganda have a female president? No, there's no female president, but the Minister for Health is a woman, and 70% of the key players on the COVID-19 National Task Force were women. So that should tell you something about deciding to vote for a woman when you have a chance. And as I already mentioned,
Start wrapping up.
okay. And as I already mentioned, we cannot hide pregnancy with the hand. So moving forward, our leaders must realize that they are leading human beings who can read between the lines. Therefore, we need correct data and information because this is very vital for people to make informed decisions. Next, soft skills. I'm sure every single one of us have survived, have tried to survive through the pandemic because of things like empathy, love, compassion, and understanding. Therefore, moving forward, this should not only remain in the household or at family level, but it should be spread into organizations and as high above as government. We should also continue demanding for transparency and accountability from our leaders. But while we demand for transparency and accountability, that should also start with every single one of us. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, the cavalry is not coming to save us. We are on our own, and I think we have seen some of these aspects from what Dudu Sensei showed us about Ebola and the vaccine. Therefore, we must know that we are on our own and have to forge our own authentic direction. Because as one of our forefathers said, we face neither east nor west. We face forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Burungi. This is very informative as to what we have learned from you related to the current situation. You have really showed many aspects related to the impact of the COVID-19, starting from the health perspective. You really show that weak systems are not only African systems, but actually we find weak systems around the world, because even the so-called developed countries, they were struggling to handle the situation in terms of the health perspective. And you have also showed the impact from an economic perspective. You showed us that, for example, a lot of companies are struggling, and well, it's not even SMEs, but even big companies are struggling, because we know that from an economic perspective, we need to have income first and then be able to spend. But companies were not having that income anymore, except a few big online companies like Dr. Dudu presented, for example, Zoom or maybe Amazon. They really profited from the situation. So this is really a picture that is showing the economic impact of the COVID-19 on businesses, on people. And this is really something that we have picked from your presentation. And you also reminded us something related to politics, because one thing that we know is that leaders need to be able to lead us and to take good decisions that we will follow to solve problems, the problems that we are facing. But if those leaders are not able to take the good decisions, the situation may even get worse. And that was the case in many countries that data and evidence has shown. So thank you very much for this presentation. I think we are running a little bit out of time, about 15 to 20 minutes late. But now I have a question from the audience. But before I try to say or give the question, because the question is addressed to Dr. Dudufal, maybe I'm going to pass the floor to Dr. Papa for a quick comment about the presentation that we just listened to. And after that, for the question, I will read it to Dr. Carl. And then during the discussion, we can talk more about what is left to talk about. So thank you very much again, Dr. Papa.
Okay, can you listen to me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much for giving me the floor. And I am happy to comment about these two wonderful presentations. It will not take long because the two presentations were very clear. I will just start from what Dr. Fall have introduced about maybe the many questioning that he have asked from the first beginning, like whether the leaders, female are more better leaders than the men. When we look at what has happened in the resilience in many countries, we see that countries which are led by women have like better, they manage well the COVID than the men. So that means we have like a lot of people who are able to do it, but sometimes because of our traditional system, we think that only men can do. So I think we need to put or like give more chances or like count more on female so that we can have a better world. And I think that linked to the two presentation, especially the last one, I already identify one future good female leader in Uganda, which is Elizabeth. So I talking about that, I also want to address the question that Dudu have asked about maybe the world doesn't count much about Africa because the COVID just came 15 months ago, but within 15 months, we already find one vaccine, which is almost 90% like a good vaccine that can be used. And he tried to compare it with the lot of pandemic that we have experienced in Africa, but still we don't have any advance in the search of solution. And this is telling us that you should not count on others. You have to do by yourself. If you think that people will come and solve our situation in Africa, maybe we are still sleeping. So that's bring back the innovation that both presentations have talked about. I think we need to invest more in innovation, health innovation, education, so that we can have a good generation of young people who are able to really work for the benefit of Africa in terms of like health issue, but in many other solutions. And Dudu also talk about how we can reshape the economy, trying to make an analogy between the actual situation of the COVID and after the Second World War, which is very interesting because we can see after the Second World War, we had a kind of unexpected economic growth with like a lot of innovation that came in. And when you look at Japan during that period, and few years later, you can see how big they have developed their countries. And that was the same with Germany also. And these two countries were the two countries which suffered mostly of the Second World War. And we have an example in our continent in Africa. I will take the case of Rwanda. They also had very difficult situation some 25 years ago, but you can see how good they are doing now. So it looks like when the human being experience some difficulties, there are still something, they always have something sleeping in their mind that if they really work on that, they still can overcome and recover from the situation. So I still believe that this COVID is a kind of unexpected experience that came in. We couldn't expect that like 1 year ago, but now instead of like having a meeting in Kyoto University in a room, now we are doing like online meeting. This is all something that we couldn't think about before. And both presentations have addressed like the importance of really investing more in finance, like education. And one top point that also Dr. Dudu have addressed is about food security. When we look at the COVID, and actually maybe the African continent only have about let's say 3% of the world COVID infection, and only 2% of the death. That means it's not really affecting much the people, but still when you look at the economy starts suffering. That means if the others suffer, this is also affecting the African continent. And one of the reasons is when you take the case of Senegal, like we are big rice consumers, and in most African countries it is like that, but we keep importing most of our food from outside. So in this corona situation, let's say countries which import rice from Thailand, from Asia, if those countries stop like exporting their let's say agricultural product, that is going to directly impact our economy, and this is what is going on. That's why we need to think how to work more. I know there are many countries are doing their best to improve agriculture, but we need to focus more on that. How can we become self-sufficient in agriculture? How can we invest in how can I say, in the health sector, like education and whatever, and also talking about how can I say, in this globalized world, I think that we should not be only let's say we should not be sleeping, because even if we are doing, we seems to do good in Africa about the control of the situation, if the second wave, which is starting in Europe or in America, keep going, because the airport are open, that means these things will still come back. So today's topic is about resilience and the experience we have learned from the COVID. But I still think that this is a kind of marathon, which is going, we don't know when it is ending. It might, you might do good for 1 year, 2 years, but then still the thing can be inverse and then come back again. So we are still here trying to think of some technology, some innovation, some way forward. And I think that the African continent, we have like many people who can work hard and then try to address the situation. We still need to develop on that. And maybe not to talk too much. And yeah, about the political situation also. We are like, we have agriculture, whatever, health system, whatever. But also we need good political leaders. As Elizabeth have addressed, she said, there is no poor leaders, not only in Africa, but this is a kind of global war. So we should not be waiting for others to come and give us lesson. We need to believe on ourselves and try to get leaders who really think about the continent, because I think we have the manpower, we have the resources in the continent to do good. So I think I will just stop from this, and if we have questions, we can come back to the discussion. So thank for the two presentations. I think they were very incentive and very important.
Thank you very much, Dr. Papa. This was really covering all the aspects that presentators give. That was really something that is kind of summarizing what we listened to. And indeed, there are many aspects related to the situation that we need to consider. And we have politics, we have the economy, we also have health. Even though the situation really started from health, we know that it kind of resonated to affect all aspects of our lives. And one thing that I remember or that I really grasp from what you said is that we need good leaders. I think good leaders are key for us to address the current situation. Because when we think of our countries in Africa, we know that the leaders, they are the decision makers, and then populations follow. But if they take the wrong decisions, population will be following those wrong decisions, and unfortunately, it's going to affect them very badly. So thank you very much for the comment. I think now we are going to move forward with our schedule, and then start with the questions and the contributions. I think for this section, first we are going to listen to the first question from the audience. And like I said before, the question is addressed to Dr. Dudufal. So Dr. Dudufal, the question is related to your comparison of, I think, the Marshall Plan in Europe and then the current situation. And the person reminded us that plan didn't include Africa much. And very likely, if we think of Africa today, even after the pandemic, probably if there are any policies that will be taken globally, they will not consider Africa that much. In such a situation, what can Africa do to get resilient? What can Africa do to recover from this pandemic? So that was the question that was asked from the public. So after you answer this question, I think if other people have some more contributions, they can just raise their hands and I'll give the floor to them to bring their insight. So you have the floor.
Thank you, Jean, and thank you, David Gore, for the question. So this is a very difficult question to answer. And you want me to be a kind of charlatan to answer this question, as I said in my first slide. But I think after the World War II, most African countries were still colonized. So it may explain why they were not really part of the plan. Because I think the US, they were like, if we help France, we're helping all the West African countries at the same time. But I think also we shouldn't, at this point of time, there is no thing that these people can do in a world, like worldwide, without including African countries, because we are independent. We have probably the youngest population in the world, and we are growing, we're still growing. So for me, as I said, there is enough money in the world to eradicate poverty. If it's only a money issue, there's enough money in the world. So why don't they do it? Why don't they decide, okay, let's give each African country 130 billion. So since I'm narcissistic, I will say like they should create a doodle plan and give each African country 130 billion to develop, right? But they won't do it because they don't probably see poverty as a crisis, like the coronavirus is a crisis right now. And my thesis into this, and it's very simple, is that because they are not scared, right? And now maybe they are getting a little bit scared because a lot of young Africans are trying to take like those makeshift boats to go to Europe or those developing countries. So they are trying to invest a lot into like, coast guards maybe and building walls to prevent people from entering their countries. But it's not gonna work. So for me, the best plan, and also it's not only that in terms of money, like we can like print money that easily. We have to take into account all those economic elements like inflation and et cetera, et cetera. So for me, what we should do is try to have a more equal world and have a world where people are practicing these effective altruism and sharing their wealth with less wealthy countries. If you can do that, probably, we'll have a better situation. And in terms of leaders, I think the leaders have already started, questioning those other world leaders. I recently listened to the president of Senegal talking to the president of France about these issues, and the African continent's place in the United Nations. So this is an issue that all these African countries leaders should fight for, and to have a better presence into the discussion table so they can intervene and force these countries to include them in the rebuild of the world. So I think basically that's what I'm thinking about, and maybe like some other like Sako Sensei or Jean can have some input to give a more detailed answer into this question, or Murangi also.
Okay, thank you very much. If you allow me, I will just give my opinion related to the question. I think the fact that the world system is now really incorporating or taking Africa into account, it can be an advantage. It can be a disadvantage as well. And from the disadvantage situation is that we now have like a poor picture of Africa. The countries in Africa, they are always the ones who are calling for Western countries to help. So that's one image that we have about African countries. And that's from the perspective of the disadvantage. And from the perspective of the advantage, I think I don't really remember the name of the crisis, but there was a crisis that started, I think, in America not very long ago, and it really affected the world economy. but it didn't affect African economy that much because African economy was not part of the global economic system well, even now it's still not that much in the world economic system because many Western countries, they see Africa as a place where they go and draw resources and that's all. So from this perspective, if we are not part of the world economic system and there is like a collapse of that system, we are not affected that much. So taking that into the current situation of the pandemic, I think that Africa, like the presenters mentioned, we need to rely on ourselves. We should not always be that in that mentality of asking for help. We need to rely on ourselves. We need to have good leaders that take good decisions, but we also need to change our way of doing things from the individual level, because one thing is also that is also important is the individual level, our own behaviors. So if we know about a given good behavior, we adopt it, and then we sensitize people around us. This is how little by little we can get more people to get into the good behaviors and then help us get out of difficult situations that we are facing, just like this one. So these are things that can really help us Africans. And being part of the world system, it's good, but at the same time, it's bad. But we need to find a kind of trade-off and then adopt one way of doing things when there is an advantage, and when there is not an advantage, of course, we need to forget about it and then keep going forward with our own solutions. Yeah. Okay, I see Dr. Professor Sako raising his hand, so I'm going to give the floor to you.
Okay, I just want to add something very quickly to this. So today, by what do you say, I was listening to all the professor from Sheikh Anta Diop University, Professor Jeng. So do you think the poverty really exists? Is it a creation? Is it an illusion? And then why, they divide the world into those blocks and then the blocks never overlaps? Why? And then why also they divided Asian countries with Africa in the same blocks, but how do they overcome those poverties? Even if they're still poor, people still consider them as emergent countries. So in Africa, even if we emerge, they don't consider us as emerging countries. But we have a lot of potentiality. So that's one thing. So the second thing, maybe you may know that the agenda 2063 of Africa, the Africa we want. So Africa made a declaration that we are moving toward an Africa we want. But why it is not supported? Why, if we declare that the Africa we want, the Africa we want to build, we want to move toward that, why it's not supported? So it's the same thing. I was also listening to the former Ghana president, Jerry Rawlings. So he was also complaining about, so all the management system we imported from outside, is those systems are really adapted in Africa? So maybe we need to change, to shift to other systems. So I think, John, maybe you were missing the Lehman shock problem in the States. That was
Thank you very much. That was the word I was looking for.
2008. But as Dudu was saying, the professor Dudu say, so COVID is also a chance for us to shift to a new, system. Africa even can lead. Why not? So why Africa could take its own responsibility? Because this is also something to be discussed today if we have chance. So what is really new normal? Because people are pushing that, okay, we start new normal, but all the books or documents I read about new normal was to be back little bit with little bit change to the normal we had before, but little bit digitalized. But even the normal we had before is not normal. As Dudu say, we should even be back more not even World War II, even before. So what was normal? What wasn't normal? So that's also the question to raise. That's my comment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Sako. Murungi, you can go ahead, and later we will listen to Sadio.
Okay, thank you so much for all these contributions. I'd also like to point out the fact that there is a reason why Africa is being called the last human frontier. And it's no secret that, the resources are taken from Africa, refined elsewhere, sold back to us at exorbitant prices. But why is that so? I think this goes back to our mindset as Africans. There's been a lot of brainwash that we are not worthy. We are not worthy of running our countries. We are not worthy of developing ourselves. We don't have the capacity to do anything for ourselves. Therefore, I know that if we started little by little changing the mindsets, and I think I pointed this out by financial literacy, we cannot have something we do not understand. So starting from there and having better leadership, I mean, if we have the minerals, if we have the land to feed the world, that is our bargaining chip. Those are our bargaining chips. But in order to bring this to the table, to the international table, we need people who understand our worth. We need people who understand what we have and make good bargaining for ourselves. I mean, look at DRC Congo, the richest country in the world. The reason why it is still one of the poorest is because the people who are bargaining for it do not know how to bargain for it and are also having um, their own selfish reasons to doing all these things that they are doing. So moving forward as Africans, we need to start thinking about how we change or how we unlock or unblock the mentality so that we start having the confidence in ourselves. And to go back to the point about poverty, maybe there's also money in Africa. We most probably do not need aid from outside. I'll give you an example. When the lockdown happened, the president of Uganda started asking the citizens to contribute towards, the national cause in order to fight COVID-19. In less than 2 months, the country just within was able to collect over $2 million in less than 2 months. Imagine what we could do if we all pulled resources together, but had good leadership that could, channel these resources well. And we could also have accountable systems, and we'll also bring back all these people, all the diaspora that has been taken out because of the things that are happening on the continent. What would we do for ourselves? So bargaining, we need to learn how to negotiate and bargain because we do have what the world needs. The leaders, we need to work on the leaders and also need to work on ourselves. That is our confidence and our mindsets. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your insight. Now I'm going to give the floor to Sadio. And after Sadio, we'll listen to David Gori.
Okay, sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you so much. First of all, I would like to really, really congratulate all our presenters and for the work that they have been doing, because at least they have covered most of the topics that are related to what is happening today in the world. So I really would like to thank them for their contribution to the debate. So when it comes to the questions, actually, we Africans, we have to ask ourselves, in my understanding, as to what these people, those who we are those we are expecting to help us, what do they get from helping us nowadays in this situation? Because every country today is having the same problem. So other countries will not leave their own problem to rescue Africa. So we Africans, we are used to I know there are some exceptions, but very, very few exceptions. But in most of the cases, in 90% of the cases, African countries, we are always waiting for other countries to rescue us in every situation. So how these people, somebody who is supposed to help you, the person, you are in the same problem with the person. So I think the person will also try to solve his own problem. And then if he gets over the problem, he will come maybe and help you. So we saw what happened in Europe when this COVID started. For the first time, we see European countries having the same union, countries in the same union were like not helping one another, and this became really a big problem in Europe. So this has to help us. This really has to tell us something in as Africans, because we cannot no more count on these countries for helping us. So what we should do today, as some of the presenters does said, is really to find a way on how to reshape our economy, our way of doing things, because we can no more at least count on these people. So I think politics is really important, because in my understanding, politics shapes our lives. So everything is related to politics. The economy, it's politics. The social structures, it's politics. When we talk about health, it's politics. So I think our politicians in Africa, this should give them a hint as to what is happening nowadays, in order to give us at least the minimum that we need. And for this one too, as one of the presenters says, everybody has something to do in this. We cannot just leave them and tell them, you have to do this because you are leading us. So what we can do as a population, we can also, like one of Jean said, everybody can contribute, but in a different way. Even if it is like just sensitizing people about like how to wash hands, how to like do the basic things for this corona case, I think this might help. So as an African, I think this has given us a lesson as to what other people like seeing us, because at least we Africans, we have to wake up. We have to understand that nobody will like, come to Africa and develop our continent for us. We have to wake up and start working if we did not do up to here. So from here, we have to reshape on our ways of doing things in order to really be in this, I don't know, in the flow of the development of our world nowadays. So this is my contribution, and I will also talk forward if there is anything I have to.
Okay, thank you very much. So the message is really clear. Just like most people said, we need to find new ways of doing things. We need to rely on ourselves and not wait for others to come and help us. So now we are going to listen to David Gorey. David Gorey, are you there? Because I see that you raised your hand.
Hello.
Hello. And after you, we will listen to Emmanuel Haruna.
Hi, I'm outside. I wonder if you can hear me well. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. First of all, I would like to thank the AK for organizing this event. And secondly, I would like to thank the two speakers, Dr. Dauda and Murungi, for their quite informative presentation. And maybe it is not a remark, but just a kind of follow-up to the question I posted about the possibility of Africa being ignored in any, global recovery efforts, which would eventually be led by the West. it is quite strange that at this stage we are still talking about African countries or the continent relying on, any other kind of recovery scheme that will be driven by the Western country, because I know that they don't have the African interest in their hearts. And of course, when you talk about any recovery from pandemic like COVID or any other bigger crisis that affect many countries, we also have to maybe consider not only countries or peoples.
Can't hear you, David.
Like other regional blocs. I mean, these are some of the institutions that would take the lead in such kind of effort. And just, I think we need to, if not question them, we really need to consider them in this kind of discussion. What could be some of, what could this institution do in order to put African agenda or to push African agenda in the global and in the regionals at the regional levels. And I think this is also in relation to recovery and other effort. And this is just a kind of a remark. Otherwise, I was just calling in to thank specifically the presenters and AAK for organizing this event. I have, this is all from me.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. David. You kind of reminded people about what others said, that we should move into a new discourse, because the discourse about, waiting for the world or waiting for the Western countries to help us is an old one. So thank you very much for your contribution. Now we are going to listen to Mr. Emmanuel Haruna. Haruna, can you hear us? Are you there?
Yeah, I'm there.
Okay, thank you very much. You have the floor.
Hello. Thank you so much for actually giving me this opportunity. Yeah. So I would like to start by thanking the presenters. I think you guys did justice to the topic, and also my beautiful sister. Thank you so much for your wonderful contribution. I think I would like to start with a question. The question is that it's just connected to what David just said. It's about, we should not shy away from it, about the issue of the recovery plan. If we are talking about resilient has to do with recovery plan. The recovery plan that we have on ground now is the recovery plan of the debt trap. Debt trap in the sense that we can only see the multinational development banks giving those recovery. And country, so each countries are actually dealing with their internal problem. So like the saying goes, charity begins at home. Until you finish dealing with your own internal issue before you start looking outside. So we should be very careful about the debt trap, because already a lot of African countries, specifically in sub-Saharan, are highly indebted. And we have seen the quantum of debt they have accrued from IMF and also the World Bank. We should also take that into consideration, right, in terms of resilience and in terms of recovery. Then I'll also list some basic facts. We all know that our impact with reference to Africa are more or less deals with economics so than health. So we found it very few people died because of this pandemic, but we find a sizable number that actually goes into poverty. Just few days ago, is it 2 or 3 days ago? So according to the president of African Development Bank, he said around 50 million people in the next year are progressing into poverty, and between 35 to 40 people, a new set of people are also losing their jobs, only in Africa. So this has to do with economics. And in Nigeria now, as I'm speaking to you, onions has become our oil now. No onions. So a lot of people have ignored agriculture. So those are the issues that we need to deal with it. Then how can we address that? Because for health, yeah, we know our infrastructures are not really formidable. right? But our major impact that affect us, right? So the larger portion of the population is the economics. So that is why I agree with the President of Africa Development Bank. We should focus on 4 concepts. IMCC. I simply means investing in infrastructure. 2, M simply means mobilizing capital, domestic capital, not foreign capitals. Then C simply means creating more jobs. And the third one is to close the energy gaps. So if we can focus on those ones, on those 4 concepts, you should be able to address that. And again, to put that into proper perspective, we need to look at the low-hanging and the high-hanging fruits. So if we should focus on that, I think we can be able to do more. So like what Elizabeth said about the resources. So, and the resources is there. And even so, it's been supported by Professor Sako. So now is that the resources is there, right? Then how can we begin to look inward and begin to address what are the most pressing issues? I'm telling you, 2021, forget about the statistics about the growth. It's about the life. It's about what people will eat. Nigeria now is crying because we don't have onions. So those are the basic issues. So if we should actually look at that, then coming just to summarize about the issue of the vaccine, are we ready? Should we rely on the West? The issue is that Professor Mohammed Yunus, so he's a Nobel laureate. So he has been advocating for COVID-19 for common goods. This is to show us that even the West do not actually support his campaign. His campaign is that let the vaccines for COVID be free in every part of the world, but the Western country ignore it. Then what should we do internally? So it's something that we need to brainstorm about it. So now, so I need to stop now. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Emmanuel. Yes, I think I agree with what you just said. We don't have a plan, and we are relying on those international organizations to come and help. And the problem is that, well, those leaders who are taking those loans, they are not the ones who will reimburse it. They are not the ones who will pay back, but actually our children will be paying back. So they are kind of putting the future of our children who are not born yet into danger. And that's a situation that we need to deal with. So thank you very much for your contribution. We can move forward. Anyone wants to give a comment, or anyone wants to ask a question? Anyone? Because I don't see any hand that is raised. Well, even those who have already spoken, if you want to add something, maybe you have forgotten to mention something, you have the floor.
Yeah, I can comment a little bit about the
intervention. Yeah, sure. Please go ahead.
Emmanuel and David Gore. So actually, the recovery plan, I'm not really telling, for example, oh, we need to wait for the West to give us money and those kind of things, right? I'm talking in a worldwide and regarding the context of this webinar, as we say, the world open up. What should we do as a world? And I was trying not to go too much like into Africa only and try to include other parts of the world also. And as the world, I think, as I said, the stimulus of the COVID-19 showed us that there is enough money in this world to solve poverty, if the poverty issue is a money issue, right? And that money, it's true, we have debts in Africa. But what's the debts of African countries actually? In Senegal, I think it's around maybe $9 billion. For a person, it's a lot of money. But for a country, is it a lot of money? And the other thing I'm telling is also, we need, if the world needs to be serious about, helping poor countries getting richer. And that's what I say. For example, I showed the books of Thomas Piketty. He's a very good economist. And whenever he's talking, he's promoting, wealth distribution, but within Europe. And I'm not an economist, so I'm just going to give like some very basic solutions. I'm like, okay, how about wealth distribution between countries, right? And I'm not talking like those countries trying to get some interests in that wealth distribution. It should be something genuine, something fair, and something maybe it's not going to happen because, as we say, countries don't have friends, they only have interests, right? It's not going to happen. But even in terms of debt, if you want to get money, investment, I don't think locally in our countries, like Murungi said, in Uganda, they were able to raise, I think she wanted to say $2 billion, right? No, not 2 million, 2 billion, right? Dollars.
About 2 billion.
Yeah, you said 2 million, but 2 billions, right? And in Senegal, it was the same. But again, if you compare it to other countries, they were able to raise like trillions of dollars. Do we have those capacities? Maybe as countries, not a single country, but as a continent, maybe we can do something. And this has been, I think, the fight of some of the Pan-Africans to really unite Africa and try to have an internal market, but an internal African market. The Senegalese market isn't big enough, right? But if a Senegalese can sell to the entire Africa without having some struggles to go with taxes to pay in another African country, etc., maybe we can develop an internal African market that is strong enough to compete with other internal like markets, other like the European Union or some other big association of other countries. So I think that is something that African leaders should work on, because the texts are here and many people have theorized it, but still we don't really have an African Union, right? So if we can have people, in that case, I may think we can like raise a lot of money and invest. And as I said, also, we have a unique opportunity in Africa in terms of investment. It's not about infrastructure and just go there and, you know, you have seen a really nice bridge in Japan and you want to replicate that bridge in Africa. It doesn't make any sense for me. We have a unique opportunity. We have nothing, but we can build the city of the future. We can build the means of transportation of the future. Like in Senegal, we spent 2 billion to build a similar railway like in France. And I'm questioning our leader, why would you do so? And it's still not working, and we spent 2 billion already. If you just say, okay, you make an international call, and you say, I have 2 billions, I want you, like designers and mechanical engineers and other smart people, I want you to create a prototype of a means of the new means of transportation, probably you would have got something with $2 billion. And then you develop that industry, you can sell it to other countries, other neighboring countries, etc. It will be like a very big business for you. But we don't do that. We like to replicate what's being done in developing countries or developed countries already. And that does not help us to go forward. And you all mentioned, like, talk about the leaders. I agree with you. It looks like, you know, in Africa, those who should lead aren't really, right? Some elites, they make money in some companies, they don't want to get into politics. But as you know, power corrupts. And even me, I can be here and tell you, no, I will change the world if I am the president of Senegal. But once I'm there, I may be doing like everybody's doing right now, right? Maybe I will be corrupt as well. So that's why the last slide of my presentation, maybe it's utopia, and I didn't explain it. I talked about decentralized autonomous organization. So since our independence, for example, in Senegal, we have been trusting people and we have been getting disappointed by those people. How about not trusting people anymore? How about, you know, using code? I didn't want to talk about technology, but, you know, in the tech world right now, people are promoting decentralized autonomous organization. So they eliminate, the human beings are still there, but everything is run by code. So maybe this is utopia, but I just wanted to talk about it so that you know about it. So I'll stop here because I think we're running out of time. And if other people have
Thank
some.
you very much for your comment. Thank you very much. You commented on what people said related to the different aspects, and I would like to remind the issue of the African Union. Pan-Africanists really said that we need to come together because it's together that we can get stronger and it's together that we can go forward. And Professor Sako also mentioned it. So when we don't come together, there are issues. And what Emmanuel mentioned related to creating an African market, that's right. If we look at a country like Japan, in terms of the debt of the country, it's really huge. And some economists are really saying that the country is like maybe in French, they say un géant au pied d'argile, so a giant with really weak legs. So that's the issue. But what is something that we need to understand about the debt of Japan is that it's an internal debt. So the government owes people within the country, but our debt is an external one. And when we owe a lot of money to people outside, it doesn't give them much confidence to keep coming to us and then investing in our country. So we need to deal with such issues, and this will help us get out of our situation. We're going to listen to, I don't know, Murungi, do you have a comment? Do you want to say something?
Well, mine is mostly a vote of thanks to everyone who has tuned in today. It has been quite insightful for me too. And as we go and we have all these great ideas about our continent, I would like to stress one more thing. As we talk about health, as we talk about the economy, as we talk about food security, and as we talk about politics, I'd like for every single one of us to remember that in whatever we do, we need to give our African people their dignity back. Be it politics, what kind of leader are you? If it's health, how are these people being treated in the hospitals and things like that? If it's the economy, as Dodo Sensei has been talking about altruism, we need to give our people back their human dignity. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We really need that dignity because when we look at the current situation, we are really treated like we are nothing. So we need to get back that dignity because we are something and we are contributing to the world, and the world needs to recognize that. So thank you very much for your contribution. I don't know, Dr. Papa, do you want to say something?
Hello, Jean. Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, so I will just add about what everybody has talked about is in most of our meetings, we always know all the problems. We should do this, we should do this, we should do, but we still don't do those things. So the question is why we are not doing the things. I will answer my own question, trying to split like the African continent between the English speaking part and the French speaking part. Maybe it's not so much related to this topic, but when we look at these two entities in the African continent, it seems to me like the English speaking countries are somehow a bit more free or independent to do their own things, while maybe the French speaking countries are a bit more too much connected with France. Like when we talk about politics, mostly we don't decide everything. So we know that Senegal maybe has some resources, Mali has some resources, but all those resources are managed by the colonial master still. And even to do something in the political way, we still need like to be endorsed by the colonial master, which is not somehow the same case with the English speaking countries. Once I was talking to my friend from Uganda, he was telling me, but it seems to me, guys, that you are still using this money, which is a bit connected to France or whatever. What are you waiting, you guys? So this has been there for a long time. And then whenever a leader try to do something against that, usually, there is trouble in the country. So I think we know the problems. There are so many difficulties to get rid of that. And saying that I think we really need to to walk more in between the African continent, like trying to get rid with the colonial masters. And that's why maybe Emmanuel has talked about it, like the inter-African, how you call it, the intercontinental free trade or something like that.
Yeah.
Like we need to think more about that the internal continent. As Muringi have said, when we go to, let's say, Congo, they have so much natural resources, they can feed the whole continent. But it is like not being done. Why? Because if it is solved, maybe all those resources that are escaping out from the country will remain, and that is not going to be the good, not going to be good for the external masters which are like getting profit from that. So knowing all those problems, I think it will take long, but now I think we need to think more in terms of like a interconnection between the continent, and also maybe work more on the mindset of the local the African people, not always thinking that I need to get things from outside to be done, but we can really count on ourselves. Everybody can go from his country, okay, I'm going to help Africa, but in fact he's not coming to help you, but he's also trying to use you, and this is have been there for a long time. We need to really work on the mindset, make people understand we can do things if we really work together. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, we still see the legacy of colonization, and you raised an issue that is very important. The way France and Great Britain, they colonized. We know that France had a direct colonization where they were on the field and then ruling, but British approach was kind of a remote ruling, and even now we still see those differences because France is still very, very active in its former colonies. But Great Britain, even though it's still active to a certain extent, it's less than the French approach. So that's very important to understand the current situation between those French-speaking countries in Africa and the English-speaking ones. Thank you very much for your comments, Dr. Papa. I don't know if someone else wants to say something. Any questions or okay, Professor Sacco, please. You have the floor.
Thank you very much. I would like to have a quick also remarks. I think as Murungi says that we need to get our dignity back. So I think, do you really believe that people who took our dignity are ready to give us back? So that's very important. So we have to go and get it, or we have to find a way, to be respected. So that's the way. For example, when we come to Japan, we are without any dignity actually. They don't know us, they don't know who you are, but by your behavior, by your way of taking things, people start to respect you. People start to trust you. They start to follow you. And then they start even to learn from you. So the dignity is something like that. It's not like with people like, okay, we stay there, they will give us back our dignity. No way. So the second thing is, if we are still waiting for what we call in French, the metropole, France, or England, or even Germany, or those countries, they always come with solution, but we have to think. They are not thinking 100% in the interest of Africa, actually. Of course, they can help Africa, but at the same time, they're still thinking about their own interest. So our economy, our system, even our poverty is supporting them. So what we should think is really, how can we be owners of what is going on in Africa? We don't have the ownership. The example of Japan started the TICAD in 1993. It was a good opportunity. Let's get around the table and think about Africa. But after, I don't know, 20 years of TICAD or even more, Japan is still saying that the ownership of TICAD is in Africa. No. So why we still follow? Everyone is creating something around Africa. Maybe you may know that India have India-Africa Forum, China Africa Economic Forum, TICAD Forum, and I'm sorry even to say that even they are coming to Japan, French Japan, a business forum to Africa. That I'm also taking part. I'm sorry for my position, but that's what I'm telling them. People are thinking about that. Why? So why we African, we don't take the ownership of our own development? If we don't eat onion, we should know that agriculture is very important for us. If they tell us that 80% of our economy is informal, we should tell them maybe the formal one is not adapted to us. Why don't we try to search solution through Dudu's specialty about how to develop informal economy? The trust economy is something which is very available in a lot of places. Because when we formalize, we will never, only 20% of our economy can be formal. It means only 20% of the population can be officially accepted in African economy. That's the problem, actually. So, I mean, my question to even all of us in Japan, as I always say, I always mention to Dudu and Papa, and also Jean, that let's really try to make a platform to really continue to discuss and think about this. So nobody is not coming to help us. They always create something to say, we do this for Africa, we love you. No way. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Sako. That's really,
I like that one.
yeah, that's really very deep. It's reminding us that we shouldn't take things for granted. There is no one who is coming to help us. And that dignity we talked about, we have to look for it on our own because it will not be given to us easily. Because those people who have taken that dignity, they are not ready to give it back to us. So we also need to change the discourse. And that reminds me of some Pan-Africanists that said we should kind of try to create our own economic development system, because when we are trying to follow the Western way, we will be always behind them because they are way forward. But if we create our own way of developing our economy, and Professor took the example of the informal economy, if we consider that and see how we can really put a lot of importance to it, to contribute to our own development according to our own understanding of development, that's really something we can profit from more than the way we are doing things now. So thank you very much, Professor Sako, for your deep contribution. Next, Sadio wants to add something. Go ahead, please, and very quickly because we are running out of time, so we need to think about.
So just a few words. I believe we are all talking about the unity in Africa, but this is something which is really, really challenging for African people, because we know that Africa is very rich and other continents on the opposite are not rich. So these people are going to Africa and take our resources and try to develop their own countries, or like, the industrialization, how it works nowadays. So for African people, in my understanding, the more we are united, the weaker these people are, and also they know about it and they are just trying to benefit from it. So it's again up to us, we Africans, to really try to understand that these people are not working in our favor. These people are working for their own favor, for their own interests. So we have to be united to be able to go forward all together. So this is what I wanted to say, and thank you. Sorry if I take too much time.
No, that's okay. Thank you very much for your contribution.
Then Jean Baptiste, I want to just add a few things. I think it just
very quickly.
Yeah, quickly. Yeah, exactly. Sorry, from the comment of Professor Sako, it was really very deep. Yeah, very, very deep, I must say. But the challenge is that I don't want to like to keep on repeating on issues. So what we should be thinking about is a way forward. Now way forward. Most of the African countries, including Nigeria, are basically facing a kind of a structural problems. And structural problems, attacking one aspect of it might not work because they need to be interconnected. So those solutions must actually speak to each of the sectors, right? But as in, we need to look at our major solution reside within our leaders, because everything needs authorities. Like for instance, in Nigeria, I know a lot of youths that are making effort individually to contribute to the well-being of every society in some community. But the lack of cooperation is from the government. I'm just speaking what I know, because I know some vibrant, ambitious young people, even within the agricultural sector, within the tech sector, within all the enablers, sectors that are actually enabling, contributing to growth. So they're making a kind of a sizable impact to the economy. But the challenge still rests on the government. You need authority. So if the environment is not formidable, so it's not conducive enough to absorb those guys' effort. So it can't have any positive impact on them. For instance, a quick one. For instance, this issue of agriculture. Nigeria is more than 200 million people. So the issue of agriculture, some people that are really making impact, government now create initiative for them to access a kind of a soft loan that will actually cushion this effect of COVID. But most of those soft loans goes to their peers and their friends, and those guys that needs these resources to actually contribute to the well-being of the society are not having this opportunity. Then what should we do? So it's like kind of a very structural problem. Even while some of us are very passionate about our country, passionate about contributing, but there is still roadblocks. The roadblocks still rest within the government. So if we don't address the issue of governance, it's very difficult for youth in Africa, including Nigeria, to add value to our society. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Yes, indeed, it brings us back to the old discourse about, politics. We know that leadership in Africa is the bottleneck of the economy. So we need leaders that will really allow the youth to contribute much to the economy. We need leaders who are there to fight against corruption, because corruption is one of the things that are blocking opportunities for young people, just like you mentioned. Thank you very much for your contribution, Aruna. Okay, I think we are running out of time. So now I'm going to give 1 minute to each of the presenters very quickly to say their last takeaway. And after that, we will stop for tonight. Okay, so maybe we can give honor to Murungi.
Thank you so much. There's so much that I've learned, so much that I'm glad we've been able to share a lot. And moving forward, I would like every single one of us to at least pick a cause that you believe in and work towards it in whichever way you can. Whether it's politics, whether it's business, whether it's health, whatever it is, pick a cause and give it your all as we move forward. And then we should also learn to plug into what is already existing. In order to increase the African pie, we need to learn to plug into what is existing, whatever that might be. If your neighbor starts a poultry farm, maybe provide the feeds, maybe provide transportation, maybe be the buyer. So as Africans moving forward, especially economically, let's learn to plug in and let's stop this whole business of trying to pull each other down. Let's plug in. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Murungi. Dudu, you have the floor very quickly.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone, for participating in this webinar. I think we learned a lot, and I think the message is let's be creative and innovative for Africa, and let's create something new. Let's not try to copy paste. Let's get inspired from what happened before. Like I said, the World War II, we can get inspired and try to see what we can do for Africa, because it's unique. We have talent, we have knowledge, we have everything we need to succeed. So let's do it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dudu. We need to do something for Africa, and it's time we start now. Thank you very much. Papa?
Yes.
Yes, you have the floor very quickly.
Okay, so I would just want to thank you very much, Jean, because you really came up with this idea of revitalizing AAK, which was sleeping. We are here, but we didn't have the opportunity to get together. So I think this is a kind of new restarting, and hopefully we can have more regular meeting and discuss about various issues, not only the COVID, but there are so many challenges that we can talk about. We have many well-known researchers here and very talented students. Anybody can come up with a kind of interesting topic, and we can have some regular schedule and talk about them. So I thank the two presenters for the wonderful ideas they brought that could help us to have like this fruitful discussion, and also all those who have commented and gave us their opinion, especially the, let's say, Haruna. I like the passion, the way you bring the ideas, and it's really the Nigerian way of speaking. So thank you very much, everybody, and hopefully we can have better opportunities and more chances to discuss. Thank you, John.
Okay, thank you very much, Papa. Now we will listen to Professor Sako.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't have much thing to add. And I would like to really thank the presentators and in the presentation. And as I say in the beginning, so let's give us this opportunity time to time to discuss and also to move forward and try to be also sometimes productive. And I thank really also AAK, Jean-Baptiste especially, to organizing this. So thank you very much for all, and also for all the contributions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Sako. I think that now we are going towards the end of our event tonight. But before we finish, I would like to really say thank you to our presenters that did a great work. I believe that we have all learned something from what they give as insights. And I would also like to thank all the participants. I want to thank Papa for his comment. I want to thank Professor Sako. Aruna, thank you very much. I thank everyone. I cannot say all the names due to time, but I thank everyone for your contributions. We have learned from each other, and this is really an opportunity for us to share our experiences, just like we mentioned in our emails. We need to share our experiences and learn from each other, and this is how we can move forward. So we are far away from our motherland, but we are also thinking of our motherland, because this is where we are coming from. And this is an opportunity for us to bring ideas together. This is an opportunity for us to share things, because we are the leaders of Africa. We are those who need to contribute to the development of the African continent, even though we are far away. So thank you very much for all your contributions. And just like Papa mentioned it, this is a kind of revival of our association, just to let people know that we are alive. And from now on, we are going to take any opportunity so that we can create other opportunities for each other, for us to meet and then share ideas, for us to meet and then if there are new things, we update them, and this is something good that will help each of us. So I want to say thank you to everybody for your participation. Thank you for your contribution. And I hope you take good care of yourselves, stay safe. And we know that there is a new wave that is kind of looming in many countries. So we need to be very careful and follow the instructions of our local authorities. And thank you very much for your contribution. And that will be all for tonight. Thank you, and good night to everybody. Have a good day for those who are in daytime now. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
ありがとうございました。バイバイ。
Je suis venu vraiment en retard. Je suis encore au bureau, hein, je n'ai pas encore fini.
Wow,
Ah bon?
tu es au bureau.
Je suis au bureau.
C'est pas facile, hein?
Je vais finir tout à l'heure.
Ça, c'est quel langue